Hello everyone, this is a Kafka Skewer channel. We will talk about today your production Kafka, right? Everyone uses Kafka in everywhere, but let's understand a little bit how I can improve my Kafka. How can I tune my Kafka on production environment? How we can do what I can do, right, in Kafka when we have a production Kafka and we have sometimes some troubles and problems. And I want to discuss some basic things and maybe more like design thinking, architecture things that we need to decide before we start Kafka. But if you have a Kafka using Kafka right now, should be better to talk with your team or with your company and discuss about this. Is very important, right? Let's go and try to explain some basic steps and some things. So what do I want with Kafka? Okay, so this is a good question that you need to understand. What is the goals for your Kafka? What's the purpose of the Kafka that you have? Because it's very important to understand this and decide where you can, what kind of configuration we can do with Kafka and what are our goals for Kafka. And with this definition, it's better to do a best configuration for the different use cases, right? So if you go to the documentation Kafka, right, you can see here, let's just open the documentation use case. So we have a different use case. So we have a messages, web active tracking, metrics, log aggregation, stream process, event sourcing, commit log. So it's a different purpose to use Kafka. So the first, it's better to understand a little bit this use case and check, okay, this is a use case, it's like my use case, and if what kind of uh, how I can use the best way my Kafka. So this is the first thing is important to is important to decide and understood. But I don't want, I just would like to show this, but the important thing that I would like to go with you is a different post with hat post. Let me see here. I will edit this because I do not do the configuration, and yeah, sometimes we do this online at the same time with you guys. I put here and I update this guy, and you can get on my GitHub. So this is a good blog post. I do not reinvented the wheel, right? We have a lot of documentation and other guys talk about this, but I would like to discuss with you and put some insights regarding this kind of thing. So the best things and what I want to create right now and start with this video when I do another video to discuss about durability, throughput, availability, and latency. This is some primary goals that you need to define what you want with your Kafka. But before we can go, we have this CAP theorem, okay? So which means is the balancing between consistent availability and partitions tolerance. But we have a note here. If you use Kafka, this partition tolerance is a different concept, is not the same concept that we have in Kafka streams, right? Because partitions is the way we organize the data in parallelism in Kafka. But this is partitions here means the rupture and the network that calls to documentation, which means we have a communication with two parts, and for some time we have a rupture, and we need to know how we can live with this. So okay, so basically, so we have this kind of thinking. We can improve the CAP with some time extended things consideration, like the else happens in choice, right? The latency, the consistency, and we can decide the prioritize if we want a CP, which means that right the consistency and the partitions tolerance, or AP if I availability and partition tolerance. So it's a different things that you need to know. The distributed system, I recommend you to go deep with this kind of thing because Kafka is a distributed system, right? So we need to understand how the distributed systems work and what the basic things beside of with Kafka. I mean, Kafka can if you don't configure your producer and consumer to know how the distributed system works, you will fail, because if you sometimes Kafka can move your partitions from different brokers. We can do this kind of configuration. One broker can go down, but if your producer and consumer cannot lead with this kind of thing in the middle of the production, when you start to produce a message, and sometimes you need to do retries and you need to collect the information in the acknowledging and the network throughput, network communication, and we need to retry and need to consume commit log, and the log in the data is different partitions. So in the partitions live in different brokers, and the brokers in different nodes, etc. So this is a kind of thing that you need to decide and need to understand how the brokers and how the distributed systems work, and design your producer and consumer to know and work with this. Okay, so let's back to this guy here. And here, we can summarize with this kind of thing. So let's move it to this. Okay, so let's go and start to talk about. When you talk about Apache Kafka in production, you need to decide if someone on an interview, for example, or this is a question for the Kafka administrator certification, right? To understand this concept. So this is why I start to talk about this, and someone in interview, but this is a good to you go in your company and try to start to talk with your boss or with everyone in the team. Okay, guys, let's review what our goals in Kafka understood better, because we need to decide some things here and to continue to grow up Kafka with Kafka, right? So first thing is durability. Let's talk a little bit about durability. So the durability is reduce the chance of the message being lost. And sometimes you guys have here, let's hypothetically talk about some messages that we will go to Kafka. Let's put here, right? So we have our Kafka, and this Kafka here have a kind of topic, but this topic need to stay. I mean, we have the retention let per air equal by default 7, right? This is the common configuration, but sometimes you can reduce 7 days. But sometimes you don't need to care if your messages that have more than 8 hours. Yeah, and you can configure retentions like 8 hours only. Depends on the configuration, so you don't need to care about the durability inside your Apache Kafka, but perhaps your Apache Kafka is a critical data that you receive on side Kafka, and you need to maintain for more than long 7 days. But remember, Kafka is not designed to use store. Is not a storage. It's not the place that you need to store a big files, or not the place that you need to store your Kafka for a long time, long term. It's true that we have an option nowadays to move data to S3, right? We have the concept. Okay, sorry for my for this. This is very big shit, right? Let me exclude this. Let's put this more beautiful. Okay, S3. Now it's better, right? So let's if I want, for example, for 7 days in local storage, and for another days I can retain infinite retention in S3, and I can save the data for a long time. And we have the concept of disk class. We have a lot of new concepts in community to talk about new features in Kafka that perhaps change this thing. But remember, Kafka at the beginning designed to start without this kind of thing, right? This kind of configuration to store Kafka for a long time. But perhaps your top configuration, remember, we have a standard default configuration from the broker that we reply to all topics, but we can configure for topics a kind of retention time. I can create different topics with different retention time, right? This is normal. So we need to understand what kind of the priority for our data. If I need to store, I need to guarantee that the messages it's safe, really safe on the Kafka. Imagine it on this scenario that we have three different brokers here, and these messages come for different sources and go there here, and there have a replication between brokers. But for some reason, one broker going down, and I need to guarantee that messages continues, produce message. I need to protect my message to not be lost if some broker going down, and it's some kind of thing because the durability is the priority here, and I need to do some extra configuration on the broker side and also on the producer. My producer PB, what PB? I don't know, but is the name my producer the best. And the consumer also need to know, because I choose B now, is PB, CB. To consume and produce means, and now, okay, so let's now talk about the next one. And so I talk a lot, right, about the durability, but let's continue with the durability is more which guarantee that messages have been committed or not, or lost. We need to a different example. Now let's go to optimize for high throughput, which is the rate that data is moved from producer to brokers or brokers to consumer. In some use case, here we have the produces. Kafka is designed to lead with millions of messages, so you need to understand what. Do you know how much messages your Kafka, how much message you need to produce to Kafka? Is the throughput? It's a kind of thing that you need to care about, or no? Because Kafka Kafka is designed to write in large volume of data, right? It's not a hard thing to do. You can do this faster, but it's some kind of configuration on our brokers, as I say. We can do some configuration here in the broker side to guarantee this throughput here, or in the maximize the rate at which moves, right? So it's a different concept here. And the same of the latency. If you talk about latency, which it's the elapsed time moved messages end to end from the producer to broker to consumer. So Kafka you can produce messages very quickly to broker, and broker you can consume these messages very quickly, right? So what is the latency between here to consumer? What is the guarantee I need to? The low latency use case. We have a lot of different use case to use low latency, right? But you need to know. Sometimes, for example, for some Kafka consumers and producers, and for some Kafka in production environment, some configuration is not the priority. The low latency or perhaps the durability is not the high priority on your goals in Kafka. And if you have a lag, for example, it's acceptable. You need to know how much the latency is acceptable to you in your Kafka. Sometimes you have a lag, but perhaps I working in a project that the lag is for some specific topic is not, I mean, the big problem. They know, they control the lag they have. So sometimes the lag increases, but I mean, in few minutes they decrease the lag because we have a consumer that will consume the message. It's normal thing that can happen. So you need to control this and need to know what you can, what you don't can, what you want in your Kafka, right? And the next thing is about the high availability, which I mean is related to downtime. You can survive if you have only 2 brokers, or you need to increase the amount of brokers to distribute it better the your partitions and distribute it better and they have I mean more options to move partitions between brokers. So this is a kind of thing you need to think about, because Kafka is a distributed system, right? And Kafka will distributed partitions between brokers, and we have the leader concept, and they have replications, etc. And so what's happened if Kafka going down, or what's happened if 1 broker, 2 brokers, if you have some troubles between the brokers connections, or some problems with storage or physical problem, etc. So this is a kind of thing that you need to care about. Perhaps you need to a geolocalization with different clusters, right? With different brokers. You need to perhaps use mirror maker here to mirror data between one Kafka to another Kafka in a different AZ or different region, I don't know, different data center. So this is a kind of thing that you need to care about, and you need to decide, and you need to talk and design what the goals for your Kafka is. The durability, is the availability, latency, throughput. This is very important to you know, and very important to decide and design in your Kafka. And it's true that sometimes, okay, but now you will decide just for durability, but in another other goals. No, I mean, it's very common, for example, to put in order my priority. For example, the first one is the availability. I need the Kafka. It don't have any downtime. And the second objective and second goal for my Kafka is latency, and the third throughput. Durability is not a kind of primary objective, but I mean, you have a different use case, and durability is very important. That need to carry and save is some kind of thing that are very important. And this is the second one. The third is throughput. The latency is the fourth. I mean, we don't care about the latency because they my object, my goal. So you need to decide this order, and with this kind of thing in mind, we can go deep. I mean, I start with this video just a kind of introduction, but in the next videos we talk about all these guys and the configuration on the producer. So we will check the configs, right, and use case and some experience that I have regarding the producer, the broker, and consumers. What kind of configuration I can do for my producer when I decide for durability, and for my brokers and consumers. If I change, now I need latency. What kind of configuration we can do? How I can turn my Kafka? If you have some troubles and problems in your Kafka, first things first, talk with the team, talk with developers and everyone in the company, and try to understand this concept here that we talk about, and design and decide this goal for Kafka. This is the first meeting that we need. When I start with some new project, this is the first thing I try to understand on the, I mean, what your goals in Kafka. I try to explain here. We try to discuss here. Try to put some answers, some questions, some decisions that we need to make, because if you have this kind of discussion, everyone agree, okay, this is our goal, the primary thing, or perhaps we need to, okay, we need two Kafka. I mean, one of the discussion, we try to put the things, I agree, disagree with this, okay, let's so split in two Kafka, because one Kafka, we need to prioritize durability, and I will put my workload regarding durability in this Kafka. And I have a second Kafka that we need more throughput or late. I mean, this is a kind of decision that you guys need to make. As I showed to you at the beginning, so you have a different use case here. For example, if you just move logs or metrics between one for monetary purpose, perhaps lost a little bit of the data is not so, I mean, doesn't matter, right? Because the thing will continue. You can lead with this, and it's not the durability is not the target here. But perhaps if you work with sensitive, I mean, in bank, for example, perhaps the durability is because you have the money moving between different accounts, and the Kafka is the central integration, and the durability is very high priority here. So you need to care to the message, the guarantee, the messages produced to Kafka. You need to guarantee that consumer can consume the messages, or I mean, in the we have a lot of the configuration. It is the kind of discussion that I want to go with you guys, and that's it. If you have any question, any comments, please, and let's go.